Hello and welcome to Pillow Fort. I'm the designer and I'm going to be showing you how the first two rounds of the game play out. So I have my 4 dice right here. I have my pen. I have, of course, a printout of the scenario, and it's optional, but I've also got a ruler to draw straight lines, but you can draw a straight line by hand if you're able. I've also got a printout of the rules reference sheet, which looks very intimidating, but I'm just going to be pointing out where we are in the round order this video. So this is Pillow Fort. We are a child building a pillow fort to keep the monsters at bay. This is the time tracker. It shows where we are in the night. We start at 9 p.m. and we want to make it all the way to 6 a.m. We've also got our flashlight battery life tracker, and we've got a fear meter. If that fear meter builds up to the 4th square, then we lose the game immediately. So the goal is to survive every night. The very first round now, 9 p.m., is kind of a free round. Nothing will be coming for us. So we have 2 free actions to take on this round to get our building started and hopefully build up some protections for next round, because that is when this number 2 indicates that from every arrow labeled with a 2, a chill wind is going to blow in. And if that chill wind reaches our character or any of the surrounding tiles, then we will raise our fear. And we don't want that to happen. So let's get building. On the very first round of Pillow Fort, you skip the stability check phase because you don't have any objects on the board yet. There is nothing to check. So we move on to the next phase, which is your first action. Your first action always starts by rolling 4 dice. So let's go ahead and do that. 4 dice. These are the numbers rolled. From these 4 numbers, you deduce your coordinates that you will build on this turn, and you have a little bit of leeway. So, for example, I see here this pair and this pair. We'll split them up into pairs like so. And that's going to give me 4 plus 1 and 6 plus 1. So this could potentially be the coordinates 5 and 7. 5, 7. So 5, 7 takes us here, or it takes us to 5, 7 here, 7, 5. So we could either be building here or here. Now neither of those look very interesting to me, so I'll rearrange it a bit and come up with 2 and 10. 2 and 10. We add those up, 2 and 10. So 2, 10 could mean either building right here, which is interesting, or 10, 2, which is also interesting. I don't know how I feel about that though. And because I'm so concerned about really building up some defenses very quickly now, because I know that the number 2 will be coming next round, I'm really concerned about this right side of the map where the arrows labeled 2 are coming from. So I'm going to want to change my roll. How I do that is I pick out 1 dice that I don't like. I'm going to pick one of these 1s, and I can mark out one of these 10 reroll circles that I get. 10 rerolls. So I've used a reroll. I get to go ahead and reroll this 1 dice. And it's a 4 now. So let's see how this changes things. Now I have available a 5 and a 9. 5, 9, or 9, 5. And I do like the looks of 9, 5, and I think that's going to be where I go ahead and build. So in an empty space, you can build a cushion. Now a cushion isn't a permanent, powerful wall like we all know blankets are. It's just going to be a small little cushion prop between the furniture to try and keep the chill wind away. How you draw a cushion, you can either draw it a 1 by 1, filling up 1 tile, or a rectangle crossing into 2 tiles. And we draw a dividing line in between to show that it's going to have 2 uses and then it's going to disappear. So a cushion is just a temporary barrier. It won't be there the whole game unless we get lucky enough to reinforce it. But this is interesting now. I'm happy with that because it means that this upper 2 is forced to take another path. So hopefully we'll be able to block them in even more. That is it. That is our first action, and we can go ahead onto our second action. We roll 4 dice again. So let me show you. We have 2, 5, and 2, 6. So this could potentially be 7, 8. Where does that take us? 7, 8 right underneath our character, or 8, 7 to the right of our character. So those are tempting. I could be building some cushions here or here. What else does this combination give us? It could mean 11, 4. 11, 4 takes us here on top of this X, or 4, 11 takes us here. But I'm really glad we landed right here on 11, 4, and I think that's going to go ahead. That's going to be where I go ahead and take my second action for the turn, 11, 4. So I hope it made sense how we deduced the coordinates from there. And it gives you some leeway, and you have 10 rerolls per game of a single dice. You can reroll as many times as you want in a turn, but we've gone ahead and selected 11, 4. When you land on an X, which represents a clothespin can string a cord across the room, so to another X. So let's go ahead and do that. And I'm thinking whether I like the looks of this one, or maybe even all the way across the map. And when it comes to drawing, I'll use my ruler to make the line as straight as I can. I think I'll go ahead and aim for the one down here. So we have a nice long cord where we can later string up some blankets that'll keep the wind out. So I've gone ahead and connected those two clothespins with a long cord across the living room. Now, of course, the cord won't do anything by itself. We need to hang some blankets up. Luckily, when you place a cord, you get to take a free action right away and put up a free blanket anywhere along it. I'm going to be choosing this tile right here. Or, well, yeah, let's go ahead and do that. I'll pick this tile, and I'll just draw a little square to represent a blanket. Now, a blanket isn't a temporary option like a cushion. A blanket will be there to stay. So I have to label it with a number. And I'll go ahead and label it with a 2. I don't get a choice in that. 2 is the first number that we start labeling things with, as you can see on this structures table. So I'll mark an X there to show that there is a 2 being used on the grid. Why don't we start with a 1? You can see these starting ones that have been printed on the page have a little 1 next to the clothespin. That's just because when it comes to the stability check, where the number is actually used, you roll 2 dice, and if it's equal to the number of one of your objects, the object collapses. Of course, you can't roll a 1 with 2 dice. The minimum is 2. So that's why your structures start from 2 and go through 12. But that'll come just in a bit. That was our free build to put along our cord, and that'll conclude our second action. We move on to the next phase, and that will be phase 3, free action. And a free action, we're lucky enough, you don't always get to do it on your very first round, but we're lucky enough that we actually got a cord strung up on the very first round. And a free action allows you to build a blanket along any of your cords on the grid. So that's great. I'm going to go ahead and take my free action by building along this cord, and I'll choose this square right here. And I'll have to label it with the next number. I can't label it with a 2 because the 2 is in use. I'll label it with a 3 because that's the next number. Mark an X there to show that it's in use. So what have I achieved on this round? Not much really, but there's no one coming for me yet. I've managed to block off this venue into my character's area, as well as this venue. So now both of these number 2s are going to have to do some circling around. But luckily we still have one more round to act. We have some other phases that we usually go through. We have whether you turn your flashlight on or not. Then we have the chill winds actually coming into the room. But of course, it's 9 p.m. Nobody's coming yet. So we can just move ahead to the last phase, which is just advancing or reducing the trackers. And we're just going to go straight ahead and mark 9 p.m. as finished. So we made it past 9 p.m. and survived. Nobody came for us. Now the game really starts. It's 10 p.m. and the number 2 entrances will be activated. So by the end of this round, we're hoping that we have some protection against these number 2s. Let's go ahead and play out the first phase of the round. Oh, actually, yeah, so stability check. What happens at the very start of the round is we go back to all our cushions, which are the temporary ones, and we color in half of them to show that they their lifespan is half over, so to speak. So cushion only survives for 2 rounds, and of course we didn't get any use out of it because nobody was coming for us on the first round, but we had to use it nonetheless. So we color in half of it to mark it's half used. On the next round it will be completely have gone through its lifespan, and we'll mark all those squares in to show that the cushion has collapsed. Let's move on to rolling for the stability check. We roll with only 2 dice. Not 4, just 2. And that's going to tally up to 8. We don't have any structures labeled 8, luckily, so nothing will collapse. If we had, for example, rolled a 1 and a 2, 1 and a 2, adding up to 3, then we would look over here, we'd see, oh no, we have a structure labeled 3, which is this one right here, and we would have to mark this square as closed, as collapsed. So it would act as an open square, and anyone could go, or the chill wind could pass through that square, and we wouldn't be able to build on it again. Luckily, that didn't happen. We rolled an 8 for the stability check, so we can just move along to the first and second actions. So let's go ahead. We got 4 dice again to find the coordinates for our first action. Let's go ahead and roll. And I'm looking at 6, 5, and 3, 3. So that could be 11, 6, 11, 6, or 6, 11, which is an interesting one. We could also mix these dice up. We could say do 9 and 8. So 9, 8 takes us here where we were last turn as well. Or 8, 9, which is right here. So it is tempting to build right here because I could build a clothespin, mark it with a new X that we could then connect, and it's in a nice central location, so that could be interesting. But I'm thinking that I'm actually, well, let me lay out what would happen if I chose 9, 8, which is where our blanket is. What you could do is you can reinforce this blanket. So I can scratch out the number 2 if I decide that's my action for the turn, and that means that it can never be targeted by the stability check again. It doesn't have an attached number. It's a permanently reinforced structure, that blanket. So even if I did roll 1, 1 next round for the stability check, I wouldn't have to collapse any object. So that's an interesting choice, but it's too early in the game, I think, really to worry about that. So I'm going to go ahead and, oh, now I've lost what numbers we had. Let's build on, so this was 9, 8, 8, 9. I'll go ahead and build on 8, 9 and mark a clothespin there. So I don't remember exactly what the dice were, but I'm sure that that was one of the options. So I'll go ahead and build a clothespin right there. And a clothespin, you do mark yourself. And the next available number for me is a 4. So I'll go ahead and mark that with a 4. We don't get to draw a cord here. It's just preparation for hopefully landing on this tile or one of the other X's in another round and being able to connect it up. So let's go ahead and take our second action now. Whoop. I've got 3, 1, and 4, 6, so that could be looking at 4, 10, which is 4, 10 down here. That's not very exciting because I'm not really worried about this number 1. I'm worried about the number 2s that are going to come out tonight. So we could be looking at 10, 4 instead, and that is a very exciting option. So it's not going to help me directly on this round, however, but what I could do if I landed on, oh no, that's 10, 5 actually, so that won't be of any help. 10, 4, I could build another cushion so that when this one disappears, there's one in its place, but I don't think that is a wise thing to do right now. Instead, I'm hoping to block off this hallway here to keep this number 2 at bay, at least for the start of the game. So I'm going to do some re-rolling, I think. I'm going to re-roll this number 6. So I scratch off one of my re-rolls and I re-roll this dice. It's going to give me a 4. So now we're looking at 4, 8, or 8, 4. And that's exactly where I want to be. So I'll decide to build on 8, 4, and I'll build another cushion. So that's another temporary one which could come back to bite me later when they start taking up space where I can't build anymore. But hopefully it'll help us out. So I've built a cushion there for my action, and of course you can build a 1-tile one or a rectangular one, and that one has 2 rounds left to live. This one we already marked half of it, so it only has 1 round. But that's our second action. Why did I do that? Because this will completely block in this chill wind arriving from number 2. It'll be blocked in between the furniture and these cushion barriers we put up. Of course, this other number 2 will also be coming in. It won't be able to get to us through here because we built up some great blankets along here, but it will be able to circle around here and come in through there, or even come in all the way through the side if we manage to block this off. But I'm not that worried because we'll move on. Well, first of all, we're going to have our free action. So I'll go ahead and quickly do that. Free action, again, you get to place an object along any of your chords. I'll go ahead and pick this spot right here. And so earlier I forgot to mark an X here to show that this was the number 4. So we're up to the number 5 now. I'll scratch that out and mark this with a number 5. We move on to the flashlight phase now. Can you see that? Yeah, the flashlight phase. Now is when the flashlight will first come into play. So I am going to use my flashlight this turn. You can see, hopefully it's not super clear in the video, but there are these dividing gray dotted lines that split the grid into 6. So 1 there, and 1 like that. If I target this lower right section with my flashlight, it will completely block off that section of the grid. It'll be as if every single square that the flashlight touches had an object in it blocking the path. So it'll keep the Gru away, the monster. I'll go ahead and use my flashlight, and that means that the number 2 won't even be able to come out of this area. This number 2 is completely obstructed, and this number 2 we managed to block in, so it's no threat. So that's great. We can, in our heads, play out the chill winds phase, which is their movement, but I have my flashlight activated. This number 2 won't be doing anything, and this number 2 is blocked in. That's great. So we move on to advancing and reducing the trackers. I did use my flashlight this turn, one of my 4 flashlight uses. So on my flashlight battery life tracker, I'll go ahead and mark one of those squares as filled in. And those will go down very quickly, and once I don't have any flashlight, then of course my fear will start to rise if I can't get a grip on the situation. Our fear didn't rise because none of the chill winds managed to reach my character, so I'll go ahead and mark 10 p.m. as completed. That's great. And you can cross this out too if it helps you keep track. But yeah, we managed to beat 9 p.m. and 10 p.m. and that'll be the first 2 rounds of the game. Where I'd go from here is I'd roll, well, first of all, I would scratch out this cushion completely, and in fact scratch the entire 2 squares out. So it's just a way of helping you remember that you have to scratch the entire squares out. And this would now mean that this is completely open. For the other cushion, it still has a round left, but I'd mark out half of it to show that, that it only has 1 round left. And from there on, I'd go and roll my 2 dice for a stability check. If any of these numbers were rolled, I'd have to go ahead and erase that just like this one, and it would be wide open. From there, I take my first action, second action, on and on. As we survive through the night, you'll see that the numbers here change. So we start out with 2 attacks, so to speak, from the number 2. Then we have a number 1, and then we have 1 and 2. And as the night gets later and later, up to 5 a.m., we have attacks from all sides. So hopefully your pillow fort, your cushions, your cords, your blankets, and all the rest will be sufficient to block out these chill winds and the monsters that might be coming as well. You make it to 6 a.m. and you win the game. So hopefully that was a good explanation of how the first 2 rounds of the game play out. On this channel there will be other videos explaining other facets of the rules as well as a longer playthrough. Thank you.